Florida A&M has added yet another quarterback this offseason, and the newest question is, when is enough enough? Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now, of course, Sam Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire and Sites expert at Who Dat Dish. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And if you're new to Game Time, download the app, create an account, and get $20 off your first purchase when you use the code Locked On College. We got a really good episode. I'm really excited about this episode because I think it's fun. And we'll wrap up with the HBCU athletes who are able to make it on the podium at NCAA Outdoors. In segment 2, Shannon Harris coming to Tennessee State feels less and less likely as we move on through the offseason. But let's kick this thing off with what I believe to be the longest ongoing saga in HBCU football this offseason. And that's Florida A&M's quarterback situation. They have added yet another quarterback. And I just ask, when is enough enough? Because in my opinion, we're starting to get past the point in which you have a quality quarterback battle. So now I feel like we're going to have to start chopping heads off. We're going to have to start saying, yeah, you out of here, you out of here. That's where we're starting to move towards, if you ask me. Okay, so the serious question here is, how many quarterbacks do you need? If you're Florida A&M, and I'm not even trying to be highly critical, this is not a you are not going to have a good quarterback conversation. This is about the quarterback competition specifically. And how do you determine that you're picking the best guy? That's what it's really about. I don't have a question that as I list through this laundry list of names that there can be a quality quarterback within there, maybe even a couple of quality quarterbacks. But the thing is, if you have two quality quarterbacks, how do you determine which one is the best for you when you have so many people who are competing for this job? Let me break it down a little bit more. The serious the serious question is, how many quarterbacks do you need? This has been an ongoing story because FAMU moves typically are, especially at the quarterback position. You're looking at a team that's looking to get back to, I don't want to say past glory because that feels like it was years ago, but just 2-3, the beginning of their SWAC era until last season. They're trying to get back to that level of success that they become accustomed to. So when you have quarterback transfers coming in at a school like that, it's going to be a big story. The thing is, I keep adding new chapters to this story. I keep saying, well, they got this guy and they got this guy. It's gotten to the point where I don't remember who came in what order to FAMU. All I remember is you brought in Tyler Jefferson was already there. I think RJ Mays was already there too. I think you brought in RJ Johnson this offseason. I think you brought in Jet Petty this offseason for sure. Like it's gotten to the point where FAMU has so many quarterbacks that my mind is not keeping up with the order in which they came to the school. I know the CJ Montez one. That was notable. But you picked up 3 quarterbacks. I think it was Jefferson. No, I think Jefferson led. It's gotten to that point. It's gotten to that point where anyway, so the point is, I feel like I keep talking about new quarterbacks. Oh, it's Johnson, Petty, and then now Lawrence Wright. The latest person to be added to FAMU's quarterback battle royale, really, it's no longer a quarterback battle. It's a quarterback battle royale. The latest player to be entered into the battle royal is Lawrence Wright the fourth. He comes over from Florida. He's a bigger guy. So he's like 6 something. I think like 6'2", and he's 243 pounds. That's what he was listed at. So that's a big quarterback. That is the sixth quarterback that they picked up. Gerald Thomas at the Tallahassee Democrat did a write-up when it was Jet Petty. And he said Petty is FAMU's fifth quarterback pickup this offseason, joining R.J. Johnson III, R.J. Mays, Tyler Jefferson, and Roman Purcell. The Rattlers' returning quarterbacks are Traven Green and Bryson Martin. Now, I went to go make sure all of these guys are still there. It looks like Roman Purcell is gone. In his Twitter bio, he has Vulcan University, wherever that is. But it's in California, I think. But so it seems like he's moved on. Cool. That's fine. So you just replace Purcell with Wright. That's 7 quarterbacks. Brings me back to my question. How many quarterbacks do you need? And it's going to give a different question in a second, too. How many quarterbacks do you need? I instantly go back to review how many quarterbacks they had on the roster in previous seasons. Last year, they had 6. The year before that, they had 7. And the year before that, they had 6. So having 7 quarterbacks on the roster actually aligns with what they've typically been doing. So when I ask how many quarterbacks do you need, 7 may be a reasonable answer for Florida A&M. My thing is, of the 7, how many are competing for this quarterback spot? How many are competing for QB1? And you may say the more the merrier. And I understand that. Like, I completely understand feeling like, well, you want to make sure that you have the best guy. You want to make sure that you have the best option. And the more quarterbacks that you pull into this battle royal, as I'm calling it, the better chance you have of getting a quality QB. I understand that on the surface until we get to practice and we have to cut down how many people are competing. Because if it's 4 people, let's just say that we're going with the new guy. So let's just say we're going Petty, Johnson, and we're going to go Wright. And then maybe you bring in Tyler Jefferson because I think he was running with the ones for most of spring practice. That's 4 players who are competing for QB1. I don't think that's enough I think that's too much because there's not enough first team reps to go around. Let's say you have a 4-man quarterback battle. That is enough for me to then constitute this as a quarterback royal or battle royal. It is because there's only a certain amount of first team reps. See, that's the thing. When I say how many quarterbacks do you need, I'm thinking, golly, how many are you going to keep on the roster? I see that this is normal for FAMU. So now my question shifts and it kind of really just narrows and becomes what it truly always meant. How many quarterbacks are you going to have going for this QB1 spot? It's not a situation where you want to get every single quarterback that's talented in the room and we want to have them compete. Because as good as that sounds, you can't give all of them the same amount of first team reps. Not enough to get chemistry, not enough to get cohesiveness, right? Because if you're talking about first team reps, that's what's going to determine the quarterback battle. You going up and tearing it up against the third team is not going to win you the battle. Even if I feel like, oh, you're showing really good timing, you're showing really good ability to manage under pressure. We want to see what you do against our first team defense. We have to. That's how these battles are won. So am I going to give a quarter of the first team reps to every single quarterback in this battle royal? I don't think that that's really going to find you the best QB. 2 is my perfect number for a quarterback battle. 2 is my perfect number for a quarterback battle. 3, I can do. 4 feels like way too much. I'm sorry. Once we start getting into fatal 4-ways and we start getting into tag team matches, I'm done. I don't feel like you can get a quality quarterback competition. You can find a quarterback, this is the best way to put it. With 4 quarterbacks that you have to choose from, you can find a quality quarterback, maybe even 2. But I do not believe that you're going to have enough room to have a quality quarterback competition because there's only a certain amount of first team reps that you can hand out, which means there's only a certain amount of first team reps that you can divide amongst 4 people. Somebody along this route has to be cut down. And here's the thing. Most of these guys came in the summer. So it's not as if, oh, okay, we went through the spring and then we're going to dwindle it down to 3 or we're going to dwindle it down to 2. These guys all came during the summer. So now the question is, when do you decide on a RJ Johnson? When do you decide on a Jet Petty? When do you decide on a Lawrence Wright that they are or aren't going to be in this competition? Has Tyler Jefferson proved that he can't be in this competition? Now you're at 3, and now the mouth of the South needs to shut up, and it's all okay. I still want to get to 2, but like I said, 3 is okay. 3 is doable. 4 is way too much, in my opinion. The line is very thin. Once you cross it, it's like, it's not like you ease into it. 3, you can do. You've seen a 3-man quarterback battle, but typically, think back. Most times you see a 3-man quarterback battle, doesn't it feel like a 2-man battle with one person just kind of hanging on, one person just trying to force their name into the competition? That's what it typically feels like to me if it's a 3-man battle. What is it if it's a 4-man battle? Is it a top 2 with 2 hang-ons? Or is this 4 people with equal standing? Those are different conversations. But let's move forward, because moving on from FAMU and going to the independent side, and that is Tennessee State, I think it's very unlikely that they get Shannon Harris. And honestly, by the time you hear this, it may have already been cemented that they're not getting Shannon Harris. Let's break it all down as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Maybe you're in Indiana or Oklahoma City and you want to try to make it to a NBA Finals game. Even if you're thinking, man, I waited too late, there's no such thing. Game Time has tickets all the way up until 15 minutes after tip-off. So even if you waited to the very, very, very last minute, I mean, your alarm is going off. Even if you waited that long, you can still get yourself tickets with Game Time, and you're guaranteeing that you're going to have the best available price, because Game Time is going to give you zone deals to have certain regions, show you the best prices there. They're going to have tickets that are available late. And here's my favorite part, is that they have all-in pricing. So I don't have to sit around guessing how many hidden fees they're going to give me. There's no hiding. Hide and seek is a child's game. I do not like to play it. Please show me all of my money up front. Show me everything I have to pay for up front, and Game Time does that. So I'm going to tell you right now up front, use the code Locked On College. Give yourself $20 off. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. The game is tonight, so make sure that you are checking out Locked On NBA to get ready for Game 5. Yeah, the Game 5. Sheesh. It's been a really good series. It's 2-2 right now. Who's taking the lead going into Game 6? But speaking of pivotal matchups, the DC Defenders just went into a pivotal matchup on Saturday, and they came out victorious. In this victory, to me, really cements the fact that Shannon Harris is not coming back to Tennessee State. I understand that he was a former player there. I understand that he's been on a coaching staff there. I get it. He's very familiar with Tennessee State. I'm sure he has a lot of love for his alma mater. But I do not believe that that love is going to tell him to pass up on a professional head coaching job to go be a co-offensive coordinator. I just do not believe that that is what he is going to do. And guess what? I believe Tennessee State will be just fine with that decision. So here's the deal. We talk about ongoing saga. I guess that's kind of the theme of the day. It's kind of the theme of the day in the first 2 segments. In segment 1, we looked at Florida A&M and their ongoing additions to the quarterback room. I can't tell you that they're done. I really can't tell you that. When it comes to Shannon Harris, I've kind of talked about whether or not he's going to join Tennessee State for a while. It's one of the things that, I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of proud about this offseason, because when I first said it, there was, man, I don't even know if it was a game yet. It may have been a game on the board, maybe 2. It's somewhere in the early parts of the season, if not before the season, even though I don't think it was, because Barlow left so close to the season opener for the UFL. But I said this very early on. Shannon Harris may not make it to Tennessee State. And as the season went on, I began to feel more and more confident about that take. I began to feel more and more comfortable with saying it. And I continue to say it, because each step of the way, this was something that needed to be watched. And as we got to the championship game, I felt concrete. Hey, they're going to offer him this job. Like that's really what it comes down to. I believe Tennessee State will miss out on Shannon Harris, because I do not believe that the DC Defenders will allow him to walk out of that room without an offer. And I do not believe that he is going to decline that offer. So, with that being said, I do not believe that he will make it to Tennessee State to be their offensive coordinator alongside his former head coach, Reggie Barlow. When I say former head coach, I mean a part of the staff, not as a player. But if he isn't the full-time head coach in DC, I'll be stunned. And I'm recording this Monday morning. It would not shock me if by the time you hear this on Monday evening, it's been announced that he accepted the job. The DC Defenders won the UFL championship on Saturday in a blowout. It was an absolute blowout, dominating fashion, especially in that second quarter when they really began to put room on, I believe it was the Michigan Panthers. DC has had success. They had success under Reggie Barlow. But one thing that they didn't do is win a championship. That's one thing that the DC Defenders had not done in the XFL, I believe they were in. Yeah, they were an XFL team. So they didn't do it in the XFL. They hadn't done it in the UFL. They had made it to a championship 2 years ago, but they fell to the Arlington Renegades. Shout out my squad. But they fell short. This time, Shannon Harris was able to lead them to a championship. I just don't think after leading a team to their first championship or leading to a championship, it doesn't even have to be your first. But if you're an interim head coach, because when Reggie Barlow decided to leave right before the season and go to Tennessee State, he made he made Shannon Harris the interim head coach, even though they were all going to go to Tennessee State. He made Shannon Harris, Reggie Barlow made Shannon Harris the interim head coach for the DC Defenders. You went on a 6-4 regular season, which I know sounds moderate, but you have to understand they were 6-2, and then they began to rest some players. Like they took a step back. They took the foot off the gas, especially in that last game. I know Ta'amu didn't start at all, didn't play at all. I think he may have played a little bit, maybe a half in the game before. So you ain't got your starting quarterback in there. I'm not even faulting you for going 0-2 at the end of the season, but that's another thing that showcases leadership, right? Because if DC loses 2 in a row, that can easily knock some of their confidence, regardless of the context, regardless of what happens. You even have the idea of rust if you're talking about resting players. So Barlow trusted Harris to lead that ship. DC trusted Harris to lead that ship. And Harris all season long showed you why he was trusted by Barlow and by the team, because he goes 6-2 to start off the season. He beats the defending champions in week 1. He's one of the best teams in his division or in his conference, so to speak. Yeah, they don't have many teams, so it's like a division, but it's technically a conference. You don't see a coach who is out of his depth. And when you lose 2 games at the end of the season before you go into the short playoffs, you lose 2 games, you have to make sure that you rally your team and everybody is focused. There is no even inkling of discouragement. And I feel like Harris did that. On an individual level, Harris ended up as the UFL Coach of the Year. Like I said, he took a team to the playoffs. He took a team to the championship game and won the championship when he was handed the reins right before the season began. And I understand they had a quality team. You got guys like Chris Rowland, former Tennessee State Tiger as well. You have a guy like Jordan Ta'amu, who is a talented quarterback in that conference. You have talent on the team, but you also have to understand part of that is understanding how to lead the squad. And Harris did that seamlessly. Just because you have talent does not mean leading the squad becomes an easy job. All it means is that you have talent on the team that you have to take to a higher level. And Harris did that, should be applauded for it. But I've kept an eye on this the whole time. And the reason I think that Tennessee State will be fine is they have Fred Case. Fred Case was coming over from the DC Defenders with Reggie Barlow as a co-offensive coordinator. Do I feel like Shannon Harris says, Case, I want you to stay as my OC? I don't know. If he does and Case accepts, then we may have a different problem. Greg Williams already stepped away from the team to go to Tennessee State, so he's going. I feel like maybe I need to give a little bit of backstory for anybody who isn't aware. Reggie Barlow was the head coach of the DC Defenders, and he stepped away to go be the Tennessee State head coach. He was bringing on Shannon Harris, Fred Case, and Greg Williams. That's his offensive coordinators and defensive coordinator. Defensive coordinator Greg Williams stepped away and followed him to Tennessee State basically immediately. I think he spent like a couple of games in DC and then stepped away. Case stayed, and Harris was the interim head coach for the DC Defenders. The DC Defenders just won the championship. I'm sorry I'm doing all of this a little bit later, but I realized that some people maybe didn't follow the ongoing story. Some people maybe aren't familiar with the names, and I apologize for that. But when it comes to offensive game planning, if you're able to get Case, you're still getting one of your offensive coordinators. You're still getting a guy who the offensive philosophy is probably pretty similar, if not the same. You know, they're probably very similar to what you're seeing. So the backup quarterback had a segment where he was talking to the reporter, and he was talking about how simple the concepts are, but how they add a complex side of it by changing up the formation. And it's only complex to the defense, but for the offense, it's very simple. And I think in that, you're going to see a lot of misdirection, eye candy. I feel like you're going to see a lot of that when you have Case. If that's what you were expecting with Shannon Harris coming on as an associate head coach and co-offensive coordinator, then I feel like, okay, you're gonna get the same thing from Case. You don't have to stress that, oh man, I'm not getting offensive mind. He had co-offensive coordinators. You're still going to get a very talented OC. Now, you'll miss his leadership, Harris's leadership as an assistant, as an associate to Reggie Barlow, but I don't know how much of a difference that's going to make. To me, you're okay because Fred Case is there. If you lose Case, okay, maybe we need to stress a little bit. But I think you still have the same idea of what your offense looks like, and you still feel trust in your offensive coordinator. And that, at the end of the day, before the season begins, is all that really matters. Having trust in your offensive coordinator. And you have that because you're still going to bring one half of your offensive coordinator duo there. And quite frankly, who needs co-offensive coordinators? Just be real with you. All right, let's move forward. Let's talk about these medals. We got two runners who ended up with bronze, and one continues their school's legacy of having All-Americans. Let's break that down as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On HBCU. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Now, I want to quickly break down both Jordan Pierre and then also look at Marcia say. So Pierre continues the streak of track and field getting All-Americans at University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. UAPB has had an All-American in the last 3 years, but this is the first new guy. The first 2 times it was Caleb Snowden. The way Pierre was able to do it was with a really strong pair of runs to close out his season. He's a 400-meter sprinter. And in the semis, he ran a 45-44, which was the personal best. That was a really solid time for him. Really, really good time. You know, I love when you see athletes who perform their best at the biggest stages. And it's hard to kind of quantify that in football, in basketball, because it's rare you're going to see a career high in points. It's rare you're going to see a career high in yards. It's just about playing well on that stage for most times. But in track and field, it's way easier to determine. It's like, okay, well, this is what you've been running pretty much all season. What did you run when the lights were the brightest? And the lights are the brightest at the NCAA Outdoors. That's when you're talking about national ranking. This is when you're talking about being among the best, which is something that Caleb Snowden did say when talking about competing last year at the outdoor championships. This year it was Jordan Pierre, who, like I said, ran a 45-44 in the semis. And then in the finals, he ran a 45-75, which obviously is a little bit slower, but at the same time, it was good for third place. At the same time, he ended up getting on that podium. He had a personal best and also a medal at the end of NCAA Outdoors. And to me, that constitutes as a success. To me, that is enough for me to say big time performance. But let's add a little extra to it. And let's say that he's an All-American, which is the case for the last 2 years for at least one athlete at UAPB. At least one athlete in track and field in UAPB. He hits the podium, gets third place. And that was the case last year, too, for Caleb Snowden. Snowden finished third place, and he says, I felt good competing against some of the best athletes in the country and holding my own. See, like this to me is what indoors, outdoors. This is what all this championship, anytime you're competing beyond your conference, that's what this is all about. And I'm not saying this as a SWAC, MEAC exclusive thing. This is everything. We could be talking about the doggone Big 12. Big 12 championship, college football playoff championships. Big 12 championship, March Madness. Big 12 championship, College World Series. Like when we start talking about national competition, that's when the tone changes. Things are, in my perspective, more impressive. But Snowden, first high jumper in HBCU history to be a top 3 finish in outdoors. So you're looking at schools, or a school in UAPB who has had a top flight high jumper over the last year and also had a top flight 400-meter runner in the last year. So big time, big time, big time. And Snowden was able to take it to the Olympic trials. So that adds a little bit extra to that year. Obviously, that only rolls around every 4 years. So because of that, you can't expect Pierre to be at the Olympic trials. It's just, it's not that year for him. But yeah, this was special. In 2023, you had Snowden again. He was the first team All-American. So the last 3 years, you've had first team All-Americans. And the last 2 years, you've had top 3 finishes, both being third place. One thing I felt like was constant when it came to Jordan Pierre is they kept talking about growth. And that is what Coach McCoy mentioned. He said Jordan's growth this season has been incredible. He's trusted the process and trained with purpose. That was after the semis when he ran a personal best. After the finals, they said Jordan has worked tirelessly for this moment, and to see him shine on the stage is truly special. And I know a lot of this is just coach speak. You just want to show pretty generic love to your athlete who just accomplished something. But at the same time, I think about the fact that Pierre didn't win indoors. He barely lost in the 400. Barely lost, got second place. And I feel like that could be a motivating factor. So it's not as if he ran through the competition. So when I hear the growth this season, these are the things I think about. How did you perform in other big time stages? You did win outdoors, but in indoors, you fell short. So it's kind of like a progression. You keep moving up. And on the biggest stage, you had your biggest performance with a 45-44. The last person I want to highlight pretty quickly is Marcia, because she finished third in the 100-meter hurdles, and it was a really good race. It was a sloppy race on one side. On one side of the track, it was a sloppy race, but on her side, everybody was poised. Everybody was getting over the hurdles. On the other side, you had somebody who hit the first hurdle, and you had another person who kind of misjudged, I think, 1 or 2 hurdles along their 100-meter race. So you're looking at some people who messed up timing, but not Say. Say came in, stepped in, and performed exceptionally. The girl next to her and her were neck and neck. Say and the girl next to her were neck and neck. It was a tight race. I was watching them the whole time. It actually ended up being separated by 0.02 of a second. So it was very, very close for both of these ladies. It was a phenomenal race. Say ended up with third place. And, it didn't get a lot of shine on the national broadcast, but I was watching Howard. So, congratulations to her. Both her and Pierre both have years of eligibility left. So I would love to see them turn around and do it again next year. The same way I'm going to turn around and do it again on Wednesday. We'll be back talking about Prairie View A&M's recruiting, because I seen a recent surge that I want to talk about when it comes to the Panthers. In the meantime, in between time, until next time we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.